Hey everyone, my name is Jess. Welcome to Right in the Childhood, and this is my very first game review. Finally completed a game on this channel, and I wanted to do a review of any game that I completed. So we just finished The Shining Force maybe a week or two ago, um, and I've been working on developing a rating scale that I think should work for just about any game, and very appropriately, I call it the Jess scale, named after myself. Each game will be rated in 7 different categories. We have gameplay, characters, replay value, music, atmosphere, graphics, and story. Each category contains subcategories worth 5 points each. The highest total a game can receive is 100 out of 100. I'm also going to give each game a difficulty rating from 1 to 10, which doesn't actually contribute to the score. So let's talk a little bit about The Shining Force. Let's start off with gameplay, since that's first on our list. First subcategory is controls. Like a lot of older games, the control scheme is actually very easy and straightforward. A interacts, B cancels, and your arrows move you. Can't really get a lot easier than that. Anyone should be able to get that control scheme down, so that's a 5 out of 5 points. Sense of direction. For the most part, this game does give you general directions without telling you exactly where to go every step of the way. Some games do that. So it gives you some room to explore towns, nearby areas, that sort of thing. I got lost maybe once or twice, but it wasn't for very long. Mostly it's just because I wasn't really sure where to search for such and such. For example, I was in a town, Kane was injured, and I knew I needed to talk to him, but I didn't know where Kane was. That was just one of those little moments where I got lost for just a couple of minutes. Older games are actually pretty notorious for being a little bit obscure with their directions. So this game actually did really, really well. It's kind of hard to get lost in this game. So I give that one 4 out of 5. Next is ease of travel, getting from place to place. In this game, it's very linear and pretty straightforward. Again, like I said previously, it's kind of hard to get lost. Many times you'll run into a battle when you leave a town, but this game has a huge bonus. There are no random encounters. Hallelujah. That alone should give it a 5 out of 5. I hate random encounters. Lots of old games do the stupid random encounter thing. It doesn't take forever for you to get from place to place either. Everywhere's relatively close together. So, ease of travel, easily a 5 out of 5. Your leveling system, again, for an RPG, it's pretty straightforward. The leveling system is XP based, which is very standard for an RPG. You know, participating in battles strengthens your party members. Something that this game actually does really, really well is it levels your enemies. The enemies level really, really well with you. No battle in the game is ever too overwhelming, but they're also not really easy either. There were a couple battles I really struggled with. You really have to take your time in some of these battles and really strategize your way through them. If you wanted to, you could take the time to XP grind, do the same battle over and over again, max out all your stats. But I don't have the patience for it, and it's not necessary in this game. Doing each battle once actually keeps you fairly in line with all your enemy levels. You don't have to worry about repeating things, going back for more XP, never being strong enough. This is probably one of the best balanced leveling systems I've ever seen. So, leveling system definitely gets 5 out of 5, even the leveling of your enemies. Menu navigation, again, super simple. You push A, opens up your interacting menu, tells you exactly what each little action does on the screen. Sometimes simplicity is the best way to go. Menu navigation, definitely also a 5 out of 5, since you don't have to search around in menus for what you're looking for. Some newer games you have to do that. Okay, so that's it for gameplay. It's a very high score in the gameplay department. Let's move on to characters. Unfortunately, that's where this game suffers a little bit. We're going to start with character development, which is almost non-existent in this game, unfortunately. The only characters with any development arc at all, really, are Kane and Max. Max is actually the official name of the main character, but those arcs are actually very, very limited. And part of the problem is, when the game was translated into English, some pieces of the story were actually completely erased. Kane and Max are supposed to be brothers, and it's supposed to be revealed later on in the game. And Kane being forced to fight you is supposed to be like this big emotional moment, and it just doesn't happen. Lao, the healer in your party from the very beginning, he's supposed to be like Max's best friend. He was supposed to be the one who rescued him. I don't know, Max was found on a beach or something and Lao rescued him, and they're supposed to be best friends, but none of these dynamics are ever actually explored in the English version. I wonder if I could find like a translated Japanese version that includes those a little better, but unfortunately, for lack of character development, this game gets a sad, very sad 1 out of 5. Backstory. Backstories lack a little bit as well. There are a handful of characters that have some. May is the daughter of one of the kings, Henri is the ruler of Guardiana. I believe Ramlaju was the king of Runefaust under Dark Souls control. Obviously Dark Souls has some backstory. General Elliot had a little bit. So there's a few characters that have some backstory, but it's really not huge in this game. And with how many characters you have, party members, etc., very, very, very few are given any kind of background. So unfortunately I have to give that a really low score. That's a 2 out of 5. This game is going to continue to suffer as we look at relationships. Again, nearly non-existent. Brothers' relationship was erased, like I said earlier, as well as the best friend's relationship. And Max really doesn't have any personal ties to anyone in his party. May and Lao might be his strongest connections, but even those aren't all that great. So, the strongest relationship in this game is actually the rivalry against Cain. That's really the one saving grace, giving relationships a 2 out of 5. Whoop-de-doo. Not doing very great in this segment. Contribution to the story. Most of the characters that contribute to the driving force of the story, besides Max, of course, are actually your villains and some of your NPCs. Dark Soul and Dark Dragon are driving your main conflict. You run into Michaela a couple times. She becomes one of your biggest enemies. We have NPCs like rulers, kings, that sort of thing that give you information about Runefaust. You learn about how much control Dark Soul has by talking to people. And so a lot of the story is told through NPCs instead of main characters. So your party members are just sort of there. The characters do tell the story, and the story is very well told. The characters that are with you just don't really contribute a lot. I gave it a 3 out of 5, since characters technically do tell most of the story. So the score in that section is pretty sad. But let's move on. Let's move on to replay value. As far as replay value, for me this game actually has a huge replay value. This game doesn't change very much every time you play. There's not a lot to discover. There's a few hidden characters. I actually missed a hidden character, but he's totally useless, so I really don't care. But I've actually played this game many, many times. For me, the variety of party members gives you a slightly different experience each time, and makes the game worth playing a second, a third, a fourth time. Figuring out your best party, giving people chances. Like this time I gave Blue much longer of a chance than I've ever given him before, and I still don't like Blue. A lot of people do. If you take the time to level him, he's apparently worth it, but he just takes too long. So as you play, you just learn which party members work well. So things do change a little bit. I would give replay value a 4 out of 5. That's the only subcategory replay value has. Can't really divide that one up. Let's move on to music. So memorability is the first little subcategory. I actually love the music in this game. I think it's super fun, super catchy. I mean, just listen to this music. Definitely a 5 out of 5. Absolutely love the music in this game. Contribution to atmosphere. I think the music actually makes the atmosphere in this game. The music takes a game that's pretty serious and could have potentially been really dark, and it actually lightens it and makes it a little more enjoyable. It makes it more fun and not so heavy. So I actually really appreciated that. Music literally changed the entire feeling of the game. So that's a 5 out of 5. The atmosphere is fantastic. While we're on the subject of atmosphere, let's go to that one. So, emotion or feeling. Did this game make me feel things? Not in the way like Resident Evil 2 or Final Fantasy VII has. No, I didn't really feel any real deep emotions, but I did have a really good sense of enjoyment. And there were a few moments during this game where I had very real frustration. There were a couple fights that were really hard. I don't particularly feel an emotional connection to any characters or any events in this game, but I do thoroughly enjoy it. It just makes me happy to play it. So, 4 out of 5 for that one. Immersion. I've never felt terribly immersed in this game, but I'm not really sure that was the intention of the game. It's one of those games you can sit down and you can play it for like 30 minutes, or you can play it for 2 hours, and you'll have a really good time and feel like you've accomplished something. It's not really meant to suck you in for hours on end. It's just meant to be a fun, light, enjoyable game. However, there are times I was pretty invested in what I was doing, if you watch me during some of those battles. So, we'll give it a 3 out of 5. That's not too bad. Atmosphere got a pretty decent score. Let's talk about graphics. Style. This is one of my favorite graphic styles, actually. I absolutely love the overhead, pixelated view, and the cute little sprites. They're so cute. And this style has actually made a comeback lately. If you play a lot of indie games, look at Stardew Valley. That's a huge example of an overhead, pixelated, incredibly popular game. It's a very simple and effective graphic style. I want to say it's kind of timeless, especially since it's made the comeback. You don't really have to make a game realistic for it to be good or enjoyable. Absolutely love the style. 5 out of 5. Immersive. Now, I had an immersive earlier, but this is how immersive is the game, visually, not story-wise. Some older games, even in a graphic style like this, are actually really highly successful in being very immersive. Although, I'm not sure this is one of them. She's a little bit upset, so I'm gonna have to hold her for a minute. Anyway, as I was saying, the lack of emotional connection between characters and to the characters as the player, plus this graphics choice, I just don't think it was, as a combination, it's just not very immersive. There are a few moments, visually, that are really, really nice. Oh my goodness. Like, I think the enemy designs are super cool, and I love the boss battles, and I like the fight animations. I think those are actually really cool, but that's about it. So unfortunately, that's a whopping 2 out of 5. Let's talk about the most important piece of the game, in my opinion. The story. Pacing. In a word, very predictable. The pacing itself isn't bad, but you can pretty much guess what comes next. At every single turn. That's right, you can predict everything. A lot of the game is spent in battles, but there are some downtimes where you can explore. There's some funny tidbits that go on, like there's one point where you can actually turn yourself into a chicken. So I would say pacing is middle of the pack, maybe a 3 out of 5. Engagement. For the most part, I did feel pretty engaged with the story. The sense of urgency to save the world's pretty well done. Could have been better, again, if the characters had better development and relationships with each other, but overall, it's just a classic story of good versus evil, and super fun at the same time. That's right. The story's pretty great. Originality. Most of what goes on in this game really isn't too original. The story's pretty basic. Turn-based combat was the style. Back in the day, I actually really liked turn-based combat, and the graphics were nothing new. But again, the fighting animations were super cool. And again, the game's pretty predictable. So I would say, as far as originality goes, I'd give it maybe a 3 out of 5. How the world and characters change. The biggest change we see throughout the game is the emergence of stronger and stronger monsters and enemies. The world just gets more and more dangerous as you progress, and I really, really like that. And I liked revisiting a couple previous areas, seeing how they were different, how they were more dangerous. The characters also continuously got stronger as well, and changing the animations after you promoted them were an awesome addition to show those character changes. So I'd give that a 5 out of 5. Let's go ahead and tally up the score out of 100. Looks like our total is 71 out of 100. That's not terrible. It's not a bad score. And let's see, IGN gave it an 8.5, which on my scale, multiplied by 10, would be 85. And GameSpot gave it a 7.5, so it was 75. So mine's a little low. It's in the ballpark, but it's a little bit lower. But remember, this is strictly based on me, not a super experienced gamer, but me breaking it down just into its parts, and not taking into account the opinions of people that have played it, or the opinions of critics, that sort of thing. And it's also being measured through the eyes of somebody who plays a lot of modern games as well. But does this game hold its own? Absolutely. It is a solid, solid game. My personal score, not based on the scale, I would put it higher. I'd probably put it at an 85, up where IGN put it. But the Jess scale is not my personal opinion. It's just breaking it down as well as I can. As far as the difficulty rating, 7 seems a little high, but 6 seems a little low. So I put it at a 6.5 out of 10. There's a lot of thinking and strategy involved in this game, and some of those battles are just downright hard. Just if you've watched my Dark Dragon battle, you would see that. That one's just hard in general, no matter what. And there were a couple times too where you get hit with 2 battles back to back. Those can't be prepared for those very well. But anyone that enjoys a good strategy game, like myself, definitely give this game a whirl. Absolutely give this game a try. Well, I guess that is officially it for the Shining Force. The Shining Force is officially done on this channel, and we are going to be starting another game. I'm actually going to only keep 2 games going for now. So we have Second Sight going, and we have Final Fantasy VII. I'm almost done with Second Sight though, so I am going to be adding another game. And this one's gonna be a little more fun. Not quite so serious. I feel like every game I've played so far has been serious. If you'd like to see more, make sure you subscribe. Leave a comment if you'd like. Make sure you check out my Facebook page and my Twitch. I stream on both of those whenever I get the chance. So, thanks for joining me, and until I see you next time, happy childhooding! Bye-bye! Say bye-bye!